Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with Chris Hardwick, and we are building fearless leaders, right? That's what he does here. And he helps people as a risk management expert, and he coaches them. He's a speaker, and he's an adventurepreneur. We're going to talk about that today. And of course, all the coaching he does, helping leaders climb mountains. I believe that's your slogan, right? How are you?
That's right.
Great.
I'm doing great.
Great to see you back. Yeah. I'm doing well. So it's Chris Hardwick, inc.com. That's CHRISHARDWICKINC.com. And tell us right off the top a little bit about what it is you do, and then we'll get started in today's depth of conversation.
Sure. I love taking entrepreneurs out of the wilderness, out into the wilderness, and kind of scaring the shit out of them a little bit. I think that too many of us get set in our ways, home offices, the daily grind, and I really like to mix things up and challenge people to learn what they are truly capable of. And I find the best place to do that is outside in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm. And you are, let's see, taking another adventure. You're taking some leaders away next week, right? And this is what you do.
Yeah, heading down to San Diego. It's a little cold up here in Canada, so we're going to head south and get into some warmer weather. And we've got some pretty exciting things planned. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, now I've met you and heard you were the adventurepreneur, and that's what you are. And people might say, well, what exactly is an adventurepreneur? Could you break that down for us?
Yeah, it's really that blend between adventure and entrepreneurialism. And, there's so many similarities between both of them. In my book that'll be dropping next year, I talk about the curse of being an adventurepreneur. And when I say curse, what I mean is it's often something that we're born with. We don't just wake up one morning and go, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, or hey, I want to be an adventurer. It's often something that's deep-seated in our DNA. Maybe we got it from our parents, our grandparents, whatever. But I think that's what I've been discovering. However, what I'm doing now is I'm teaching people how to change that mindset from maybe being a little bit sedentary, maybe not getting out enough, and encouraging them to take some risks, overcome their fears, and discover what they're truly made of. And it's when we get out on these adventures that we learn how capable we are. But we put all of these obstacles in our way, and we tell ourselves all of these stories about what we can and cannot do. And I like to confront all of those fears that people have and all of those stories that people have got going on in their own head, and challenge them by saying, well, hang on a second. What makes you think you're not able to do that? Mm-hmm. And really get them thinking about the opportunity. And so going on adventures is a wonderful metaphor for business. Because it's all about challenging the status quo. It's all about learning how to take on new, overcome fear and take on new risks. So I've built a lot of systems and processes around how to do that. But that's really the essence of it, Jill, is overcoming your fears, taking some risks in a calculated way to learn what we're truly capable of doing in our lives and our business.
We have to mention the book, Adventurepreneur. Hello.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We got to go to the website and check it out. And I love the cover of the book, right? Because it's one half of you, like, as a businessman, right? And the man also has the other half. He's like climbing mountains, so it's like amazing. You say where adventure and business meet. Tell us about the book.
Yeah. Well, it really, I go through a 9-step plan. It's broken up into 3 parts. The first part of the book is around what I call the call. It's like this calling, this deep-seated need to break the cycle with everything that we know and to pursue adventure. And that's where I start off talking about the curse. And then I go into what's called the breakaway, where we break away from societal norms to a certain degree. We break away from what everybody thinks we should be doing or what everybody's telling us we should be doing. And it really starts off with developing this vision for our lives and what it can become and what it could become, and then laying down a plan to essentially get there. The next part of the book is around adventure. And what does it mean to overcome fear? What are our fears? So we need to identify those, understand them, and then develop strategies for actually overcoming those fears. So I teach people a lot of biohacking, how to actually hack their brain and their bodies, and to overcome the chemicals that have been released in our brains that we have no control over. So I coach people on how to manage what's actually happening to their body in high stress or high fear situations. And then dive deep into risk. What is risk? And I love talking about how when we first, as babies, learned to walk, we didn't watch a YouTube video. We didn't watch a manual. We had this need to walk. We're bipeds, right? We that's what we need to do it, and we don't think about it. We just know that we've got to get up and walk, and we fall, and we get up and we go again. And within the space of a few days, we're walking around the house. It's the same thing with riding a bicycle. It's the same thing with many other things in life, and business is the same way. So we take these calculated risks, and every time we fail, we learn and we go again. And so it's very much learning from our failures and coaching ourselves on how to take bigger risks. And what is the reward of that? The reward is that we learn how to do things that we never thought possible. So that sort of rounds out the second part of the book. And then I go into really, what's the end game? What are we doing all this for? What does the exit look like? Exit meaning maybe it's a business exit in terms of selling our business or merging our business or doing a management buyout. Does it mean sailing off, into the blue yonder or going traveling around the world when we retire? I like to challenge that concept a little bit because people think that they've got to do all this stuff before they can have, before they can go to that next step of their life. And so anyway, it's a lot about figuring out what the end game looks like. And then something I talk about is something my dad and I used to wrestle with. I call it the cake. And he always used to say to me, Chris, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And so I spent my entire life basically proving him wrong. Since the age of 22, I've been traveling around the world every year for 3 months, and I still do it today. And I've been doing it throughout my entire career,
but also building very successful companies as well.
While I was still going off on these adventures, right? Because if you've got the right people working for you, and that's what I talk about. I talk about building the team, surrounding yourself with people that are way smarter than yourself, and then I talk about the ship, right? Like this whole concept. Again, my dad was in the war. He was in the Navy, the Royal Navy in England, and on the Merchant Navy, and he was always off on these ships, going on these trips around the world because he was the first true adventurepreneur. And so I tie it back to that and talk about, where we're going to go, what's the direction that we have for our lives. And so that's a really high level summary of what I talk about in the book. It's a bit of it's not a how-to as much as I share a lot of stories because everybody's journey is unique to them. But
it sure is inspiring.
Yeah, and it is, right? And it's just, we can all create our own story. So I see myself as a bit of a change agent. I help people get out of the status quo, break the cycle. A lot of people these days are dealing with uncertainty. They're dealing with things that we've never seen before, fear of the future, AI, robots, lost jobs, autonomous vehicles. Like it's just all of this. There's so much confusion about what's going to happen in our world. And so I spend a lot of time helping people deal with that and coaching them on how they can actually be a catalyst as opposed to, waiting around to get disrupted by others, how they can drive change and growth. And so being a change agent is something I love doing, is helping my clients really make these huge changes in their lives. So that's a bit of a monologue, Jill. Sorry about that, but it's something I'm pretty excited about.
Well, absolutely, as you should be. And can you teach someone the steps of being or becoming an adventurepreneur? Yes.
Yeah, I think you can. Absolutely. It's really that blend of adventure and business. And first, it begins with identifying what the vision is for our own lives. Like, what do we want to achieve? And too often, we place all these limitations on ourselves in terms of what we can and cannot do. So I encourage my clients to dream big, to dream hairy, audacious goals, things that, are really seem ridiculous at first place. But once we start to build a plan around that, we learn that actually nothing's impossible. Sometimes we've got to remove those naysayers out of our life, all of those people around us that are telling us what we can and cannot do. We've got to forge our own vision for our own lives. So that's a big part of where I start on this journey, is enabling people to dream big and create this vision for their own lives.
Beautiful. And that's what we help people create. Again, we're talking to Chris Hardwick. If you are just tuning in, he's here helping leaders climb mountains. And as an adventurepreneur, we're talking about that today. As a coach, as a speaker, as an adventurepreneurist, he's here joining us today, talking to us not only about his book, but how he really wants you to, you could value everything. Like you mentioned, what I love, you believe in people's personal relationships as well, whether it's their children, their family, their friends, because that is crucial to a company to keep that employee, happy, and the employer. It creates success overall if you have the whole package in a sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, the culture of adventure is something that I love bringing into organizations, and we'll chat about that another time, but it's really around challenging the status quo and challenging people's conversations that they got going on in their own head around what they tell themselves they're capable of, or more importantly, they're telling themselves what they're not capable of. And you do that in an organization with a group of people, a large group of companies. And when I used to run my own companies, we were often taking people off on adventures and getting them to do things that they never thought possible, whether it was rock climbing, or whether it was doing like a Via Ferrata or going zip trekking, and people were afraid of fear of heights or fear of failure, and really coaching them through these fears so they realize that, as a matter of fact, they can do this. It is achievable. And no, they're not going to die. And they're going to have an amazing experience, and they're going to learn what they're truly capable of. And that's going to change their whole mindset and psyche about what they can do in the future.
I love it. Well, what other aspects of an adventurepreneur did you want to share? I mean, we've been talking the past few months, and, we heard about your stories. By the way, how many countries have you visited, by the way, again?
I'm up to 105 countries now.
Okay, how many countries are in the world? I don't even know.
There's, it changes based on the interpretation of a country or a republic, but it's around about 220 countries.
And you're gonna get to them all, aren't you?
That is the plan. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to knock off 4 or 5 countries every year, and just keep on trucking. My wife, I'm off to Japan skiing with my boys. I leave on December 27th. My 3 boys are a lot like myself.
Going to say, how old are they, and what are they doing with their lives? Are they
24, 26, and 29. And, the funny thing is, Jill, I've been taking them on what friends would deem insane, crazy adventures since they were 5 years old, 7, 9. I've had them climbing mountains. I've had them off on backcountry winter camping trips.
Wow.
Where I used to carry a sled with all of their snowboards and a backpack with all the tent and food and everything. And then when we would head up into the mountains for like 4 or 5 days and just build a base camp, and they'd be building these big jumps and launching off them on their snowboards into the powder. And so we're just still doing these crazy trips. I only use the word crazy because other people tell me
they're
it's
crazy.
Well,
it's not the normal. Let's take the family to Disney. Let's go see the Eiffel Tower. The common things. You're off track. You're off roading here and really seeing the world. So do your boys work in any of the companies that you have started up, or are they also?
No, I'm not a big believer in family businesses. Mm-hmm. I always think that people should forge their own paths, their own journeys. I mean, my dad tried really hard to get I'm one of 3 boys, which is pretty funny.
Aww,
my dad tried hard to get my brothers and I to come into his business, machine tool engineering business in Sydney, Australia. And, we were chatting one night at the bar, and anyway, he went off to the washroom, and one of his business associates was with him, and he said, you guys, you all got careers. Like, Chris, you're in construction, your brother's a motor mechanic, your older brother's a electrician. He's like, you all got your own careers. Like, this is your dad's career. You guys should do your own thing. So when he came back, he said, okay, he pounds his fist on the bar. He says, okay, what's happening? Are you guys coming into this company or not? And we all looked at him and said, no. He said, excellent, because I got somebody who wants to buy the company, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys had first kick at the can before I sold the company.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. That's great.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that. We thought he was going to be really let down. But the funny thing was, he knew we all had our own lives, and he knew we were in our own things. And so I've always remembered that. And with my own kids, never really wanted to sort of push them into any one particular thing, or just because what I was doing or what I was excited about. I really want them to forge their own lives and their own careers. Yeah. So as a result of that, 2 of my boys are living in Australia at the moment, although one's coming back next year. The other one loves surfing, and what a great place to be in Queensland. My youngest son is still at home because he's figured out it's a lot cheaper to stay at home than it is to go out, move out like his brothers did when they were 19 and pay for rent and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, they all love traveling. And actually, my 2 oldest boys are in a 1,000-kilometer gravel bike race in Australia currently as we speak, from Canberra down to Melbourne over the snowy mountains in Australia.
How long of a trek is that?
They'll probably be doing about 100+ kilometers a day. So that's going to take them about 8 to 10 days. And it's all self-sufficient. They got to carry their own gear on their bikes and
their food,
and
their
they're
water.
off grid. So I've got no idea how they're doing. But, it's completely, there's about 500 people do this ride or this race every year.
Have you ever done it, Chris?
Well, I was supposed to do it last year with my oldest son, but then the timing didn't quite work out because I was in Africa. But apparently only about 30% of the people who enter this event actually finish because it is so
grueling,
insane.
Oh my goodness! Well, I wish them the best of luck.
Helicopter evac and.
Now, do they stick together, or do you even know? Are they supposed to stick together, or no?
Josh and Matt have done several similar trips like this. They rode across Europe a couple of years ago during COVID, and so they've done a lot of these mega rides together. And all 3 of the boys are really close, a lot closer than my brothers and I were. I think that had to do with my wife's upbringing and the kids there.
And your bonding of taking them on travels and adventures. Yeah, now, does your wife have a knack for this too? Has she been to 100 and something countries as well, or she's a little less traveled?
She's up at about 40 or 50. I met her when she was backpacking around Australia.
Oh, my goodness. So you found your own adventurepreneur. How amazing.
Well, she's an interior designer. She doesn't really combine her passion for interior design with the adventure as much. But when I went to Africa without her last year, and she saw my photographs and heard the stories, she's like, you're not going to Africa without me this year. So she came with me for 6 weeks, and we camped in a rooftop tent on top of my Toyota Land Cruiser for 6 weeks through Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, and Kenya. And I never forget one night we're in this like remote campground in the middle of a national park. And there's like, we just seen baboons and lions down the road, and we'd seen cheetahs and elephants and all kinds of crazy, hippos and stuff. And we pull into this like deserted, dilapidated, run-down camp, and the palapas have all collapsed. It looked like nobody had been in this campground for like 20 years. And I'm setting up the rooftop tent, and she's like, "This is so cool."
Amazing.
And I'm like, yeah, this is why I married this woman.
Oh, wow. Amazing, amazing. Now, hold on. By the way, where do you currently live, Chris, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia,
So
Canada.
when you mentioned you have your Toyota, your Land Cruiser, how are you you mean you rent one when you're there?
No, I own one. It's living in Africa, waiting for my next trip.
Oh, smart.
So yeah, I kept it in Johannesburg, South Africa last year, and this year I drove it from South Africa up to Tanzania, and it's now in Tanzania waiting for me. And my youngest son wants to come with me next year and do a trip back down through. I want to go up to Rwanda to see the gorillas, and Uganda, and then drive down through Zimbabwe and Zambia back down to South America. There's just so much to see in Africa. The people are so friendly. The animals are incredible. I mean, I took about 5,000 photographs on this last trip. And, we got like lions just like lying like 20 feet away from us, and cheetahs just wandering around the vehicles, and watching this mom train her 3 or 4 cubs how to hunt these Thompson gazelles. Like, it's just mind-blowing. Melissa woke me up one night. There's a noise outside the tent. I open the zipper on the rooftop tent, and there's a frickin' 2.5-ton hippo right under the rooftop tent. Amazing. It's chomping away on grass. We're right on the Lake Naivasha in Kenya. It's just mind-blowing experiences, and everyone talks about how dangerous it is and how scary it is, and not once on the entire 6-week trip did we ever feel concerned about our safety. Everybody was super friendly, and the animals, they're not interested in us. They're interested in eating other animals.
No. Well, just curious. I guess this is normal for people who travel like yourself. So is there a place that you leave?
This is not normal. Not very many people do a self-guided
Well, no, it's so you're able to leave your
Africa.
vehicle somewhere. Do you keep it somewhere it with a friend, or is there a place that you store it? Or
surprisingly, this is something that a lot of Europeans do. Not so much North Americans, but a lot of Europeans will have vehicles in Africa, and they store them in like what are called overlander storage places. Wow. These vehicles are called overlanders because they're fully kitted out with fridge and stove and bedding and all the cooking stuff, and the rooftop tent that pops up. It only takes a few minutes to set it up, and an awning, and you just have, chairs and table. You're fully self-sufficient. You Amazing. Can go anywhere. I mean, there's four-wheel drives that will go through some of the most atrocious roads you've ever seen in your life.
Well, I wrote it down, overlander. Okay, I've never heard that term yet, so thank you. I'm going to be Googling this up later. One day, I got to get to Africa. I've never been. So what else as an adventurepreneur did you want your listeners and audience to know about? We have just 3 minutes left, but always a good conversation. I'm living vicariously through you, and I don't want to. I want to beat you. I want to start, but I have a 7 and 9-year-old. I want to travel. It's not easy. For some people it's not easy, but gosh.
Why is it not easy, Jill?
I don't have the finances to do so. I don't have the help to do so because it's just the 3 of us, right? So finances, I think, play a big part, at least for someone like me, right?
I'm going to dispel that myth.
Go, tell me.
Because it doesn't cost anything to go take your kids hiking into the woods.
Oh, absolutely. But I want to go to Africa. I want to do these cool trips. Start small.
Start small. Like my kids, I used to take them onto the local mountains. We would carry backpacks. They would have their own little backpacks with their sleeping bag in, even when they were 7 and 9 years old. And you don't need to go very far.
Okay.
You only need to go a few kilometers from the trailhead, right? And camp. And, just the wonder, right? The stars are out and you can lie there on the ground outside the tent looking up at the stars. There's so much incredible beauty right at our doorstep, and it doesn't cost anything to go on these adventures.
It's funny.
So you can start small.
Okay.
I used to take them, like I say, on these, even before they all had snowboards, I got them like some cheap snowshoes at Costco or whatever, hiking boots, and we just get out into the wilderness, get out into the forest, get out into the parks. You don't need to make it complicated, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And that's the thing that's really cool about going on adventures. It doesn't have to be expensive. And I'm sure that you could do a trip to Africa for the same amount of money as you could do a trip to Disney World.
Very true.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't need to spend a lot of money. People, when I was young, when I first started doing this, when I was in my early 20s, or even before that, like my buddies and I, when we were 14 and 15, we would just grab a sleeping bag, stick a couple of tins of baked beans in the front, strap it onto the handlebars, and we would go off into the local national park, camp on the beach, and just under the stars, and we would have a great old time.
Wow.
And we didn't, just on our bikes and sleeping bags and like a tarp or just a piece of plastic to put under us or over us if it rained. It was pretty low tech.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't fancy, it wasn't expensive, but we were having all kinds of crazy stuff with, the 10 most deadliest spiders and snakes in the world in Australia. We used to catch snakes and throw them at one another and even cook them up sometimes. And probably weren't allowed to do that in the national parks. We just did fun stuff.
Well, it's great to know that anyone could become an adventurepreneur. And thank you for dispelling the myth of, you need to have the finances, because you don't. I'm going to rethink this. I live on Long Island in New York. Beautiful place, right? So we do little adventures. We go to Montauk, the lighthouse. We've done New York City. We do all those little things. But I want to try a camping ground. I've never been to a camping ground on Long Island. I never camped before. So, okay, you got I have my notes.
How far are you from the Adirondacks?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Good question.
That's a famous mountain range that runs down the East Coast of the
I
US.
know, but I'm on Long Island, so I'm about an hour away from New York City, then the hike upstate. I'm not sure how far it is, but there's little campgrounds. I could start basic out here and just do regular.
Absolutely. Start small, take kiddie steps, and, I can guarantee you the kids will have such an amazing time because they're just in the wilderness. I mean, we were not designed to be living in cities, in houses with full air conditioning and heating systems.
All the privileges that we have, and they're so spoiled.
Our bodies were designed to be out in the wilderness. Our bodies were designed for things like cold plunges and being cold and not having 3 square meals every day. We're incredibly resilient as human beings, but most of us tell ourselves that we're not capable of doing these things. And I always challenge people for them to give it a go.
Wow.
And just, get out of their comfort zone, go find out what they're capable of, and they will be incredibly surprised by the rewarding experiences and memories that they create.
Beautiful.
And you can't buy those memories, right? These are memories that you will have for a lifetime. And my kids, and I mean, I was a scout teacher for a while. I was a mountain bike coach. I was a soccer coach. And even at the local church, I had a youth group, and we would take them off just at night, like night hiking, instead of sitting around doing what we were probably supposed to be doing. We had the headlamps. I'd buy all these cheap headlamps from the local shop, and we'd go out and go for a night hike just in the local park. And, oh my goodness, they had so much fun.
Wow. Yeah.
It doesn't take much, right?
Good.
It's really easy to get started.
Oh, my. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. And everyone, Chris Hardwick, inc.com. How did you want to leave off, Chris?
Oh, just, if you can just change the story that's going on in your own head, stop telling yourself what you can't do, stop telling yourself what you can do, and get out there and go on an adventure.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, guess what? We'll be back hopefully soon. Enjoy your next trip and travels with your next crew of businessmen you're taking away, right? Where are you guys going again?
Going down to San Diego, and we've got some really exciting adventures planned. So
awesome. Thank you, Chris. You have a fantastic day. A great show. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
Happy
Jill.
travels. Bye.
Daily grind got you down? Dreaming of adventure? Want to reset your life? G'day. I'm Chris Hardwick, Adventurepreneur. For 20 years, I've been taking entrepreneurs into the wilderness and scaring the shit out of them. Through coaching and wilderness expeditions, conquer your fears and take risks to transform your business and your life. Google Chris Hardwick Leadership or visit chrishardwickinc.com to book a call.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.